Jeff Healey's song could indeed be symbolic of the experiences of that time, although it had not yet been written. The time when Angela and I first started our life together was full of expectations and changes. We were so young, just married, and a whole new chapter was opening up before us. And at that moment, Uncle Will, or Tex, as everyone called him, came to town. His appearance in our lives was so unexpected and bright, as if the wind of change itself had brought him here. He was a real old Western movie guy, tall, burly, with distinctive sideburns and slicked back hair. He had his own style, and all this created the image of a person with whom it was impossible not to notice, not to pay attention. He was an oil man, and his wealth was probably the greatest I had ever encountered. He came to our city because a geologist discovered something strange in the ground, and our city happened to be the closest to this place. The day Uncle Will showed up at our wedding, his charisma couldn't help but turn heads. He danced with my wife more than I did myself. He was so bright, so confident that even I felt some discomfort. Although his gift of money and a nightgown for Angela seemed quite ordinary, his whole behavior left a strange impression. Tex was a flirt through and through, and his behavior at the wedding would have raised questions in anyone's mind. He kissed Angela on the lips as we walked around the guests, which gave me mixed feelings. Although this was more of a manifestation of his character, for me as a husband, it became a moment of awkwardness and jealousy. And unfortunately, I did not know that this would be the starting point for many events that would begin to unfold in our lives. He said, "You will thank me next time we see each other, and your beautiful wife will show me a gift." I thought he was talking about the dress and replied, "Certainly." Angela looked at me, wondering why I agreed so easily, but instead of saying no, she replied, "I'll be happy to show it, and thank you for dancing with me all evening." Mr. Two Left Legs turned me down here. I was indignant, making excuses. "You know that I can't dance. Besides, I had to go around the guests and talk to them." She replied, sounding a little offended. "I talk to everyone, but on my wedding day I want to dance and not sit around doing nothing. That's why I didn't refuse your uncle." My uncle added, "I wouldn't listen to her even if she said no." I learned a long time ago to distinguish between no and nuwu. Angela clearly wanted this. We laughed at the sexual innuendo he made, drawing out the second no as if it were an expression of sexual arousal. Coming from him, it didn't sound so rude, but I liked his last phrase that Angela wanted it less. I looked at Angela. She blushed. She squeezed my hand, letting me know that everything was okay and my uncle was just being his usual horny self. That night, my Angela was hotter than a firecracker in bed. I thought it was because it was our honeymoon and our first night when we could relax and not worry about getting caught having sex or that she would get pregnant. The chances of this happening were slim, as we didn't plan to have children and she didn't want to take the pills. She said that she would adjust the diaphragm later, but in the meantime my friend would have to wear a coat. I suggested trying an abortion, but she reminded me of several friends and cousins who had gotten pregnant using this method. She wasn't completely against it, pointing out that it's safe during and immediately after menstruation. She just didn't want me to enjoy it too much and be too lazy to use a condom. We moved a few days after the wedding to Alpine, where I took a new job teaching history at Sul Ross College. We loved the place, the friendliness of the people, and the beauty of the mountains. In those days, teaching did not bring a lot of money, but there was enough of it. I liked teaching. Angela found a job at a department store. We considered ourselves lucky when we found a one-room adobe cabin for $175 a month. It wasn't luxurious, but we furnished it, and it was our home. Our spare room was the couch in the living room. Angela received about a dozen nightgowns as a wedding gift. I forgot about the box from my uncle, but I remembered the money he gave us. We put them to work. We paid a deposit on the house, paid the first month of rent, bought a mattress for the bed and a second car. Angela drove our good car, and I drove a cheap but reliable one. Life was good. The marriage was great. Sex was our favorite pastime. We fooled around a bit. After kissing and caressing her breasts for a long time, the beauty and sensitivity of which fascinated me. I was kissing her just below her navel when the phone rang. I wanted to ignore him, but she insisted on answering in case it was urgent. She breathed heavily as she picked up the phone. "Hello, Uncle Will." "No, you didn't interfere. I don't know why I'm breathing so hard." "Ha ha, probably because I'm talking to you. You're so funny." Angela looked at me, smiling. I thought if he talked to me, it would drag on for an hour, so I asked her to say that I was not at home. She looked annoyed, thinking I was being rude. She shrugged and continued the conversation. "Thank you for the gifts." "No, I haven't worn it yet. I wanted to save it for a special occasion. It's really beautiful." "How did you guess that I love dark blue?" "Oh, because of my blue eyes?" "You're such a flirt, Uncle Will." "You're old, but I'll call you Text." "Not that old, I'm sure so." "Is it true?" "When?" "It will be great to see you." "How about we go to a country dance?" "I would like to." Sitting on a bar stool that was a honeymoon gift, Angela looked at me as she talked to my uncle, but what she was doing was driving me over the edge. With a seductive smile, she caressed her breasts. She changed her position slightly, stretching her legs a little wider and leaning on the back of the sofa. There was an air of ease in her movements, as if it was the most natural pose in the world. I involuntarily held my gaze, feeling how my attention was completely riveted to her. For a moment, I thought this was some kind of invitation. I started to get up from the sofa, but she just calmly shook her head. Her gesture was light but unambiguous. I returned to my seat, trying to hide my slight confusion. She smiled, a playful, slightly mocking smile touched her lips, as if she perfectly understood the impression she was making. Then she winked, weightlessly, almost fleetingly, before turning her gaze back to Uncle Will, who seemed oblivious to the slightest detail of what was happening. His voice continued to sound calm and confident as he spoke, asking her to call him Text from now on. She listened to him with a slight smile, as if at the same time she was here and somewhere far away in her thoughts. Her every gesture was filled with mystery, as if she was playing a game whose rules were known only to her. There was a special sparkle in her eyes when she looked at me again fleetingly, but long enough to make my heart skip a beat. The situation was heating up, but not a single word, not a single extra gesture gave away her mood completely. Everything remained on the edge. There was something alluring and almost elusive about it, like a light breeze on a hot day. She again took a relaxed pose, continuing to listen to Tex, but in her every movement there was confidence and a hidden game, the rules of which I had yet to unravel. "I'll tell Billy you called. Trust me, he will be delighted. You are his favorite uncle. Mine too. That's so nice of you, Tex. I don't know about other women, but I like it when a man compliments me." They talked longer, but I didn't pay attention to what they said. I was too busy looking at my wife, thinking how beautiful she was and how sexy she could be. She began to move, arousing my interest and confusion at the same time. Her movements were smooth and confident, and the slight smile on her face only increased the tension in the room. We looked at each other. There was an invitation, playfulness, and a hint of something more in her gaze. "Join me," she said, beckoning me with her hand, as if making fun of my indecision. I sat on the sofa, watching her, feeling a strange mixture of emotions. This was a new moment for us, as if we had overcome some invisible line. Her breathing quickened, and her voice became soft and distracted. A thought occurred to me for a second. What would Uncle Will think if he suddenly ended up here? But this thought quickly disappeared when I met her gaze again, full of confidence and challenge. "Tex, I promise I won't wear this until you see it on me. Now you just need to convince Billy. I know you're his favorite uncle, haha, and we're family, but this nightgown doesn't leave much to the imagination. I know it shouldn't. You're so bad, Tex. I'm sure I'll see you soon. We will definitely go dancing in Marfa. I've wanted Billy to take me for a long time, but we just never do it tomorrow night. At the same time. Okay, sweet dreams to you too." Angela hung up and immediately went to work. When it was all over, she looked at me with a small smile and tossed me a box of tissues to clean myself up. "What we just did was crazy," she said excitedly. "I know," I answered, smiling. You can't even imagine what you looked like." She came up to me, and we continued to hug, enjoying the moment of closeness and silence. We sat next to each other for a while, just looking at each other and talking. She then suggested we go back to the bedroom, and I followed her. She helped me up and, taking my hand, led me back to the bed. We lay down next to each other, and she, turning her head towards me, said with a smile, "Let's continue from where we left off." I nodded, feeling inner warmth and tenderness towards her. I sat down next to her, hugged her, and we plunged into conversation again. She began to talk about her interactions with my Uncle Tex, recalling his habit of joking and his inimitable confidence. She mentioned the nightgown he had given us, a gift that had been unused until now. "You know, Billy," she said thoughtfully, "your uncle seems to like me." I didn't answer, but continued to listen to her words as she continued to talk about how Tex reminded her of Leif Erikson with his outstanding appearance and confidence. She grinned. "Tex, I always liked this nickname." We continued our conversation, immersed in memories and thoughts, letting time pass as usual. After that, we went to bed and hugged. We talked about what we had just done. We were on our side. I played with one of her breasts and commented, "Your breasts are really big. I know he likes you, but who doesn't? You are very beautiful, Angela, and you pay him a lot of attention. He probably thinks you're being nice to him when you flirt with him. You're not jealous, are you? I'm just being friendly. He was very kind to us. I'm just showing him that I appreciate his generosity." I noticed how she reacted to talking about Tex, and I realized that I was excited too. We ended up on the bed together, completely surrendering to the moment. She caressed herself as we moved in the same rhythm, and soon we both reached a new peak of pleasure for the third time that evening. After that, we lay on our backs, looking at the ceiling and holding hands. I wanted to talk about what had just happened, hoping it would lead to a deeper conversation. I liked what we did tonight, but I also think we're playing with fire. What if he gets the wrong idea and misinterprets your flirting? How do we say no to him after we have supported it? I'm sorry for looking after our guests when I'm not needed. This isn't the first time he's looked at you. My mom always said Will was like a raccoon, always sniffing. He saw an opportunity and took it. I know people thought it was strange how often you danced together. I should have sent that nightie. He bought you back and politely told him it was inappropriate. But I shouldn't have satisfied myself while you were on the phone with him and talking nonsense. She squeezed my hand and thanked me for taking equal blame. She also agreed that we were playing with fire, but did not know how to slow down a speeding car. She also seemed pleased to know that he had admired her for a long time. She liked knowing that he lusted after her. "Since when?" "Since when what?" I asked. "Billy, when did you first notice Will looking at me?" "There was a swimming pool. You and I swam. He sat with my parents, but kept glancing at you. You looked amazing in that black one-piece swimsuit. Sexy, but innocent. We didn't do anything then. Then there was a family meeting. You were wearing shorts and a top. You're so tanned in the sun. I sat next to him. Every time you did something, he looked at you. I know this because I couldn't take my eyes off you that day. This was the day after we did it. You were no longer a virgin. You looked different, more mature, but also as if you were aware of the power between your legs. That's not all, if you're interested. Are there any more? That's enough for today, but I think I'll ask later." I turned to my side. She had a dreamy expression on her face. I wondered if she fantasized about him. I knew I was biased, but in my opinion, she was the most beautiful woman in the world. He had several marriages. All his ex-wives were beautiful, so the idea that he thought the same about Angela only strengthened my conviction. She looked at me. "Billy, today wasn't the first time you got that emotional thinking about my relationship with your Uncle Will, was it?" "How did you know?" I sounded like I was ashamed and embarrassed, but I really wasn't. I wanted her to draw my feelings out of me. She didn't sound surprised or upset, but rather supportive. "We women know a lot. I've suspected this for a long time, but I wasn't sure until tonight. I've noticed that whenever Will is around, you become more affectionate. I saw this at a wedding. You watched me and Will, but you didn't seem upset. When we walked up to you and he hugged me, you looked excited. I looked at her and decided to confess. Yes, that's true. I hope you don't think less of me. I don't want you to actually do anything to him. It just turns me on. She lifted her head from the pillow, kissed the bridge of her nose, and then my lips. Silly, on the contrary. I was very, very happy, knowing that it turned you on. I realized that I can be myself and not worry about you making a scene, sulking, or starting a fight. So what did you imagine when you satisfied yourself thinking about Will and me? Did we kiss? Were his hands all over my body? Did you imagine us having sex, how he had me? I honestly told her about the first time. It was at my parents' house. You were sitting in the living room waiting for me. You were wearing that burgundy dress that I loved so much. It was short and rode up even higher on your hips. Uncle Will sat across from you. You didn't notice, but he saw your panties. Seriously? And the fact that he looked under my dress turned you on? I nodded. Yes, seduced. Billy, did you satisfy yourself afterwards? We haven't even gotten to third base yet. You saw me in my most vulnerable moments, and your uncle noticed more than he should have before you. My God, no wonder he is so persistent in showing interest in me. He probably thinks it was intentional, that I wanted it myself. Her voice sounded excited. Yes, I saw it, I admitted, not hiding my emotions. It shouldn't have bothered me, but it did. She nodded, looking at me carefully. We've been together for 3 years, Billy. Have you really been thinking about something like this all this time? I lowered my eyes and awkwardly admitted that these were just fantasies, nothing more. It was important for me that she understood. I don't need reality, it's just thoughts that come and go. You are kissing. His hands touch you gently, helping you remove your clothes. He pulls you close, hugs you, touches your body tenderly. His lips slide over your skin. Everything happens so quickly that it seems like time has stood still. I leaned back, feeling the tension drain from me. Only a minute passed from start to finish. Wow, how fast, and so much. Go get yourself in order. I got up, went to the bathroom, and returned to bed. I climbed under the blanket with her. She said, "Now everything has become clear. What should we do, Billy? He will arrive in 10 days. I just promised that I would go dance with him and show him that night robe. I'm married now. I can't sleep with him. I'm your wife. Maybe I should go stay with my parents while he's here. Maybe I should wear a nightie over my regular clothes so he can see how it fits. Maybe he's just joking. It's hard to understand him because he doesn't filter his thoughts. He just blurts them out. I know I flirted with him a lot because I felt safe. Now I'm worried." Instead of agreeing with her, I did the opposite and tried to smooth things over. "Don't worry. We'll figure something out. Next time he calls, we'll keep our clothes on and not touch ourselves." We kissed goodbye. She told me she loved me and reminded me that she might be flirtatious, but her eyes were only at me. I told her I loved her too and that she was everything I ever wanted. We had everything under control, we assured each other. Only we didn't, and the speeding car looked increasingly uncontrollable. The next time Uncle Will called, I answered the phone. We exchanged pleasantries. He asked to speak with Angela. She stood and watched as I collapsed like a tent in the pouring rain. Instead of telling him Angela was unavailable, I told him I would take her. She asked me to tell him that she was not here, but it was too late. She picked up the phone and looked at me, which told me I was in a doghouse. She didn't sound angry when she talked to Will on the phone, but rather flirtatious. At first, she ignored me, but after 20 minutes of me standing and watching them chat, she motioned for me to come over. She said, "Take off your clothes." I undressed. Now I am. My heart beat faster with every movement as I helped her take off her clothes. She alternated hands, freeing herself from the sleeves. Next, I carefully unfastened the clasp of her underwear and lingered for a moment, admiring her curves and the warmth of the moment. When it was time to get rid of the remaining pieces of clothing, she helped me with one movement and gently pushed them to the side. She touched my shoulder, gently hinting for me to kneel in front of her. I followed this gesture, and as I approached, I smelled the faint scent of her skin. Overcoming caution, I pulled the last barrier off her and looked at her, absorbing every moment of intimacy. She sat down on the nearest chair and motioned for him to take his time. Her fingers gently touched the back of my head, as if guiding and encouraging me. The other hand was holding the phone, and in her voice there were serious notes of the conversation she was having. I barely caught the words, but her calm, confident answers filled the room with an unexpected atmosphere. When the call ended, her gaze met mine again, and that special, invisible attraction arose between us again. Moments turned into minutes, and minutes turned into hours, until our feelings reached their climax in the bedroom. Surrounded by soft light and comfort, we dissolved in each other, completely trusting the moment and our feelings. This was that rare case when reality exceeded any expectations, leaving in memory the warmth and lightness of the experience together. He pulled away to avoid unnecessary risks and began to carefully remove the used condom. "You looked very excited," she said with a smile, watching him. "Yes, that's true," he admitted. A thoughtful smile flashed across her face. "I have an idea. They say it's good for the skin. Let's try." He looked at her in surprise, but noticing the confidence and interest in her eyes, he agreed. She gently rubbed the result of their intimacy over her skin, as if experimenting with an unusual beauty tip. They exchanged kisses for a while before her hands gently guided him down again, not letting him forget her request to pay attention to everything that was important to her. When he was with her, he couldn't help but wonder how surprising and unpredictable their moment of intimacy was, and what consequences sometimes came from such spontaneous decisions. The next evening, we lay in bed and watched the news. The night before, we had demonstrated a complete lack of resilience, so instead of deciding to get stronger, we didn't talk about it. Even though we both thought about it, we just pretend nothing happened. We fell asleep, me holding her until I was sure she was out before I rolled over and went to sleep. We were both hoping Uncle Will would call. The next evening, he called a little after 10. We hadn't talked about him all day, but there was a certain sexual tension in the air. We cuddled on the couch and watched TV. The phone ringing scared us. We looked at each other. It rang a second time. The third time she asked me, studying my reaction, "Will you get it? It could be something important." I swallowed, feeling a lump in my throat. "I think we know who it is. He's not calling to talk to me. If you want to talk to him, you'll understand." The phone rang 2 more times. She looked like she was having an internal debate between good girl Angela and her dark, devilish side. The temptation of the forbidden fruit won. She asked, "Do you mind?" I nodded my head. "No." She squeezed my hand and went to the kitchen, where she answered the phone on the 6th ring. I was angry at myself, not her, for not insisting and telling her to ignore it. I didn't tell her no because my dark side won. I wanted her to pick up the phone. I didn't just want to, I needed her to pick up the phone. I got up and started to undress. "Hi, Tex." "Damn," she sounded excited. She smiled as she looked at me, winked, and pointed out my excitement. She motioned for me to come to her. She asked me to undress her. I did. "It looks like this will be a repeat of the previous call." I didn't mind. "I'm fine. How are you?" "Yes, we're both excited. I can't wait to go to the dance. It's terribly cute, but you don't have to do it. Size 6. Tell me about your day." Angela looked around as I played with her breasts. She pointed to the refrigerator. I walked over to the refrigerator, wondering what she wanted. I opened the door and pulled out a can of whipped cream. She nodded her head. "No." I put the whipped cream back and pulled out a jar of chocolate syrup. She nodded again. "No." I couldn't think of anything else. I opened the vegetable tray. There were several cucumbers. I grabbed the biggest one. I did it as a joke. I showed it to her, thinking she would nod her head no and finally tell me what she wanted. She shocked me when she nodded her head yes. I said, "Seriously?" She nodded yes. It was cold, so I went to the sink and ran warm water. I looked thoughtfully at the streams flowing into the sink. Meanwhile, she walked over to the kitchen table, the phone still pressed to her ear. The tube cord was long enough to allow her to move freely. Slightly surprised, I noticed that she lay down directly on the table, continuing the conversation. Uncle Will, as usual, spoke a lot and with enthusiasm, while she answered briefly and evasively, "Yes, no, I promise." He seemed to feel that he was talking too much and asked what she was doing. "Are you getting ready for bed?" he asked. She smiled, lowering her eyes slightly, but did not answer. Meanwhile, I mechanically came closer, thinking about some of my own affairs. There was something incomprehensible in the air, a slight tension and laughter of our common absurdity. I turned to her as if I was waiting for some kind of joke or proposal, and of course, I expected to hear, "I was joking. Go get some whipped cream." We often joked that one day we would break the kitchen table, but we always treated it as just another frivolous joke. The sofa and bed were much more comfortable. I glanced at the cucumber lying on the table and grinned. "This is already completely crazy." She lay looking at the ceiling with a mysterious smile, as if expecting some move or decision from me. For a second, I wanted to break this silence with a light touch, something familiar, warm, and homely. In the end, I just leaned over and softly kissed her forehead, relieving the tension of the moment. "Good night," I said with a smile. She just giggled and continued talking on the phone, leaving me in a strange and at the same time cheerful mood. I took my time, trying to be as careful and attentive as possible to make her feel comfortable and pleasant. "He's doing well, he really loves his job," she said with a slight smile. "We're both happy here. I also love my job. I think he understands that only you and I will go to Marfa. If not, I'll remind you. Trust me, he won't mind. He doesn't like to dance. I guess this can be considered a date. I'm a little worried." I watched her reaction, trying to act gently and carefully. Each step was accompanied by her deep breathing and a slight smile. She looked relaxed, almost dreamy, and asked me to tell her something to keep the conversation going. "How is your new truck?" she asked. Her voice was slightly trembling, but confident. "Great. I think you'll like it when you see the salon," I answered, trying to play along with her mood. She giggled, and the sound immediately lightened the atmosphere, adding lightness to the moment. I continued to be extremely attentive, listening to her reactions and breathing, trying to ensure that every step I took brought her pleasure and did not go beyond the limits of comfort. Her body reacted to my every move, confirming that everything was going right. She turned to accommodate our unusual experiment. There were traces of spilled water on the floor under the table, but she did not pay attention to it. I carefully put away the item we were using, making sure everything was in order. Her face showed slight displeasure, but she said nothing. At this time, her phone rang. She answered briefly and abruptly. "You're in your repertoire," she said with a grin. "Do you think I will think about you?" There was irony in her voice, not indignation. Having finished the conversation and wished her good night, she turned to me. "Let's continue, Billy." I thought she wanted to change the conditions of our experiment, but she stopped me. "No, continue as we started." I obeyed. She looked pleased, although tired. Finally, having caught her breath, she joked, "Billy, that was unexpected." I smiled and echoed her tone. "I agree, it looked impressive." She laughed, but added, "I'll definitely feel the consequences tomorrow." "Why did you choose the biggest one?" "I just wanted everything to work out right," I answered with a shrug. "Billy, bring me a condom. I want you." I ran into the bedroom and took out a condom from the nightstand. I opened the package and got ready. She sat down on the edge of the table, making herself more comfortable. We were both tired, but somehow we still found the strength to communicate. "I feel a little strange," she said with a smile, looking at me. "This is temporary. Everything will be fine," I answered, reassuring her. She hugged her knees, pulling them to her chest, and then looked at me as if thinking about something. "Are you all right?" I asked. "Yeah, it's been a long day," she said. We were both on the verge of exhaustion. I helped her get up, and we decided to go to bed. Before lying down, she asked, "By the way, don't throw away that cucumber." I nodded silently and put it back in the refrigerator, separate from the other vegetables, just in case. When we were finally in bed, she asked me to hold her. I lay down behind her, hugging her the way she wanted. We were both exhausted and fell asleep a few minutes later without saying a word. It seems that we are completely exhausted today. He didn't call for the next 2 nights, and we didn't make love. We were excited but waited for his call to start the party. In the meantime, we had several serious conversations. She thought a lot. The first thing was the telephone. Its location in the kitchen was convenient during the day, but she wanted a more relaxed environment for calling Willa. Angela said, "Call the telephone company and see if they can install a telephone in the bedroom. I think I'll be more comfortable if he's on my side of the bed. Surely this is much better than talking in the kitchen." I immediately agreed and called the telephone company. The next day, a specialist came and installed the phone. This added a small amount to our bill since the line was already connected. In gratitude, Angela hugged me tightly when she saw the new phone on her nightstand. "Now we can be in bed when your uncle calls. I can sit here and talk without disturbing you in the living room." She looked at me flirtatiously. "What should I cook for you for dinner? Steak and baked potato, or bean and rice enchiladas?" I chose the enchiladas because her Mexican cuisine rivaled any in town. Over dinner, she started talking about Will's visit, which smoothly turned into a discussion of other issues that, in her opinion, needed to be resolved before his arrival. "Do you mind if your uncle and I go to the dance hall in Marfa?" I told him you won't mind. Did I do the right thing? I finally flew off a cliff the moment I answered. "Angela, I don't mind. I want you to have a good time. If I go with you, it won't be so fun. I'll just stay home and wait for you." She took my hand in hers and looked at me with those blue eyes that I could never resist. "We may return late." There was enough mystery in her voice for me to understand what late meant. I put my other hand on hers and said, "I know. Just wake me up." "I'll wake you up," she promised. But she didn't stop there. "Let's discuss where everyone will sleep." He said he might bring his RV, but he might not. "We only have one bed. The sofa is too small for him. He will be terribly uncomfortable." This was my second cuckolding moment of the evening, and it was even more powerful. "Angela, I'll sleep on the sofa. You and I will still be cramped there, and we won't get enough sleep. You and Uncle Will can take our bed." She started stroking my hand harder. "Are you serious? Do I understand you correctly? Do you want your uncle and me to sleep in the same bed?" I felt a little ashamed. I looked away and began to look at her hand, the one with the wedding ring and engagement ring. I worked so long to buy them. I nodded, but it wasn't enough. "Say it, Billy." "Angela, I don't mind if you and we'll sleep in the same bed." She got up from the table and took the dishes to the kitchen. I sat there sipping my beer, wondering what the hell I had just done. Why was I so excited and scared at the same time? She came back from the kitchen, stood behind me, and hugged me. I felt her chest pressed against the back of my head. Those wonderful breasts that brought me so much joy in so many ways. She leaned over, kissed my ear, and whispered, "You know that I love you. I just wanted to say thank you for your understanding. Everything will be fine. I promise. I love you too." "I know," I replied, taking a deep breath before continuing. "Next time he calls, can we do the same thing we did that night?" "Certainly. I'm glad you liked it as much as I did. Help me finish the kitchen. Again, thank you for taking over the phone and for your kindness and understanding. You are an amazing husband, Billy." Uncle Will had indeed called, and now Angela was talking to him, naked, lying in our bed. I used cucumber and another one that she chose for herself. Instead of the usual intimacy, she suggested a slightly unusual form of contact. We were very close to each other, touching and hugging, completely immersed in the moment. Our touches and kisses filled the atmosphere with tenderness and passion until we both felt complete satisfaction. I then continued to care for her, paying attention to her comfort and gently caressing her so that she felt my care and closeness. We both felt the tension building. She made a list of errands for me, went to the beauty salon, did a manicure and even a pedicure. On those nights when he didn't call, we tossed and turned nervously in bed. Time's up. We could get in the car and go away for the weekend. He would have taken the hint, but it would hardly have stopped him. It would have only delayed the inevitable. He had a goal, and sleeping with my wife was on his bucket list. If not this weekend, then some other day, but it would still happen. It's Friday. Angela seemed calm, but claimed she was nervous, but in a good way. I didn't know what I felt. One moment I was horny, scared, and excited, and the next I was super excited. I had no idea how I would react. Angela suggested I take a Valium to calm down. She hugged me and whispered, "You don't want your uncle to see you panicking. You can't worry like that, it's harmful. Everything will be fine. On Monday morning, or when he leaves town, we will go back to our old lives." I thought, our old life ended the evening he first called. Why is she so sure that we will return to her after he leaves? We didn't even have sex unless he called. And most importantly, Angela was in the middle of her cycle. She was fertile, was not on birth control, and did not have a diaphragm. What if Uncle Will doesn't use a condom? I had a lot of reasons to be nervous. What if I just don't be here when he arrives? I think this will make me less nervous. When I find out that you are gone, I will return home, I suggested. She flatly refused. No way. First of all, I need you here, next to me, for moral support. Secondly, your uncle will be offended if you are not here. He will wonder, why? Thirdly, I won't be able to enjoy the evening if I think that you're sad and lonely, sitting in some seedy bar. Fourth, don't you want to help me prepare? Come on, this will be fun. I said I'll stay. He refused Valium and asked Lone Star. She handed me the beer, and I took a long sip. Never before has beer tasted so good to me. What should I do, Angela? She didn't just look happy, she was delighted. Her passion rubbed off on me. First, you can run me a bath, and then take off your clothes because you'll get wet. Her voice was calm but commanding at the same time, and I knew there was no point in arguing. I nodded and headed to the sink where the valves for our old, but incredibly beautiful cast iron bathtub were installed. She stood in the middle of the bathroom like a piece of art, a true vintage rarity supported by graceful lion paws. When we first moved into the house, I was amazed that the previous owners didn't take her with them. Apparently, they understood that this bath belonged to this house, its atmosphere and spirit. I turned the valves, releasing warm water, which began to fill the space of the bathtub with a characteristic noise, soft and soothing. The couple rose upward, covering the room with a light haze, and the air became humid and enveloping. At first, I just watched the water as it quickly and confidently found its way, and then I took off my shirt. I thought it was funny that she told me to take off my clothes not for the sake of intimacy, but simply because I would get wet. This was her logic, and I was used to obeying her, even in such small things. I never helped her take a bath. It was a new experience, a new frontier that felt strangely meaningful. Yes, we took a shower together, we soaped each other, kissed under warm streams of water, and sometimes we just stood silently, hugging each other. But this was something else. Now I wasn't just helping her relax or caring for her. No, I was cleaning it for another man. The very awareness of this evoked strange feelings in me, a mixture of jealousy, humility, and something else inexplicable. I looked at her. She stood at the door, leaning against the frame, and watched me. Her gaze was calm, but there was a hidden spark in it, the same look with which she sometimes looked at me when she expected something special from me. I reached over to the nightstand and took her phone. Maybe Will call. She might want to talk to him in the bath. I don't know why I was so hooked by this thought, but I imagined how her naked body would lie in the water, and her voice soft and playful would be heard through the space of the bathroom. Taking towels and a small wicker basket with accessories, I returned to the bath. The water has almost reached the desired level. I took out a new razor and shaving cream and placed them on the edge of the bathtub. The razor was new and sharp, just the way she liked it. Sometimes she allowed me to shave her legs, and it was almost a ritual, intimate and trusting. I loved these moments when her body was completely mine, at least for a moment. "Everything is ready," I said quietly, stepping back. "Okay," she answered, slowly approaching the bath. "Help me." I extended my hand and helped her into the bathtub. The water enveloped her body like a silken blanket, and she let out a small sigh as the warmth touched her skin. I knelt down next to the bathtub and looked at her. Her hair was pulled back into a messy bun, with a few strands falling out and sticking to her neck. I ran my fingers over her shoulder, letting the water run down my arm. "Please get some more bath oil," she said, closing her eyes. I nodded and stood up to comply with her request. At that moment, I found myself trying to guess what she would wear after her bath. Perhaps lace lingerie, or something simple but effective. I wanted to ask her if she would let me choose an outfit, but I said nothing. I had the feeling that this was her little game in which I was only a participant, but not a director. When I returned with the oil, the bath had already completely enveloped her, and the room was filled with the smell of lavender and sweet almonds. I leaned over to her and began to slowly massage her shoulders, kneading her muscles and helping her relax completely. She didn't open her eyes, but I knew she was smiling. I was here for her, and for his sake. Angela entered the bathroom. She said, "I see you are getting into the spirit of what is happening." I looked down. She was right. She undressed and climbed into the bath. The water temperature is ideal. I just want to lie down and relax. Bring me some iced tea. I brought it. She took a sip. "So refreshing. Why don't you sit down?" I sat down on the cold tiled floor. "Let's talk about tonight. I have a date in a few hours. Dinner and dancing. In the meantime, wash my back. Use a washcloth. Nice, isn't it? Now take a sponge. More soap. I love the smell of wear. I think my breasts are already completely clean." She examined her armpits and pulled her leg out of the water. "Perhaps you should shave me." While I was following her instructions, she asked, "Do you like cooking for me? This is a special moment that we can share. I think in the future you will always help me prepare for dates. Would you like this?" I nodded and said, "Certainly." I wanted to come so badly. "Angela, can I take care of myself? It would help me calm down." She looked at me and answered, "I'm afraid not. Not until I get home. Have another beer or take one of my happy pills if you need to calm down. But I'm glad to see you so excited." I had just finished tidying up her body when the phone rang. We both shuddered. I handed her a towel so she could dry her hand, and she picked up the phone. "Hello, Tex. Are you here yet? Is it true? I thought you were coming to your motorhome. Next time. We have a place. We've already decided that you'll get the big bed and Billy will sleep on the sofa. Where will I sleep? What do you think? It's funny. In 1 hour, I'll be ready. Billy helps me. No, I won't. See you." She hung up and looked at me. "Your uncle will be here in an hour. I still need to dry off and do my makeup. Because of the heat, my hair completely lost volume. Turn on my curlers." When she came out of the bath, I took a large towel and threw it over her. I started to wipe it off. She leaned on the sink and spread her legs. "I can smell you," I commented. "Is it true? And what do I smell like?" I lowered myself to her, feeling closeness and warmth. She looked at me with a sly smile, as if teasing. "Come on, do you think I'm as special as you think?" There was something mesmerizing in her voice that drove me crazy. She continued, breathing heavily. "Do you know why I'm like this? Why is everything so special? But that's enough for now. When I return, you can finish what you started." An inner voice pulled me not to stop. Desire took over, but something inside held me back. I looked at her and said quietly, "You're ovulating." Her gaze became soft, almost thoughtful, and her fingers gently slid through my hair. "Right. Next time, maybe everything will change. Are you ready for this? Ready for responsibility?" I didn't answer, but she understood everything without words. My emotions betrayed me completely. She smiled, stroked me, and, as if to sum it up, added, "Think about it." She said softly, That's it. Try to relax completely. After that, I smiled and said, "Wow, it really helped. Sorry, I didn't have time to think of anything else." She smiled back, "It's okay. Looks like you needed this. Now you can feel calmer." I tried to get up, but she stopped me with a cough. "Didn't you forget something?" I looked back and saw that I hadn't cleaned up after myself. "Oh, I'll do it now." She smiled with a fake cough. I wiped everything down, and she said, "Great. Now, before you do my makeup and hair, put some moisturizer on me." She pointed to the bottle of lotion. I took her and a towel. He spread a towel on the bed, and she made herself comfortable. I started applying lotion to her back, and then when she turned over, I continued to care for her skin. She looked at me silently, smiling at the corner of her lips. "You need to stop. I'm starting to get too worked up." I continued massaging her chest, arms, stomach, and legs. She watched me. "You like it, don't you? Should I put lotion on you?" I asked. "Silly. You know what I mean. You can confess. I'm not ashamed to say this. I love that you are preparing me for your uncle. You like it too. I've never seen you so passionate about me. It's like we've reached a new level of intimacy." "Yes, I like it. I shouldn't, but I like it. Husbands who love their wives don't do this. I think it shows how much you love me. Can I ask you something?" "Certainly. If this weekend goes well, or even if it doesn't go as well as we hope, can we do this again? Will you support me if I start dating other men?" I didn't think twice about it. The thoughts of other men paying attention to her, their glances, their touches, their interest in her, it was all too tempting. But I also realized that this is only part of the attraction. I got the most pleasure from their emotional interaction: dancing, flirting, telephone conversations, gifts, dinners together. In many ways, this aspect of the relationship was even more exciting than the physical intimacy. I held my gaze on her silhouette and then looked up and said, "I would agree." She sounded relieved. "Thank you. I wanted to ask you about this. After these 2 weeks, I thought you would agree, but I didn't want to assume anything. I needed to know. You have no idea how relieved I feel knowing that you want this for me, for us." I finished applying the lotion. She asked me to put a robe on her. I did it. Then she said, "Let's go to the dressing table." In our bedroom, she had a separate dressing table where she sat and did her makeup. I made it for her when we were dating. She mentioned one day that she liked this kind of thing, and being the good guy that I am, I used the university carpentry shop and built it. One of the university carpenters helped me. I worked for him for one summer, so there were no problems with access to equipment. She told me to sit next to her and watch. She would paint one side of her face and let me do the other. Together, we put it in order. With her dark hair and chocolate skin, she opted for light red lipstick. I suggested a deeper shade of red that I thought would suit her better. She replied, "I want to look sweet, angelic, and not vulgar." Eyelashes were difficult for me, as were curlers. She said, "It will get better with practice. Maybe I'll even ask you to do my nails. Would you like this?" I replied, "Yes, I would like to." I stood there, concentrating on her makeup. Our position was unusual. I was too close, but I didn't attach any importance to it, carried away by the process. She remarked, "You look amazingly focused." I explained that I just wanted everything to be perfect. Working on her image seemed almost intimate to me, but at the same time professional. "This is such a delicate moment," I added. "Do you understand what I mean?" She nodded. "Understand." She was silent for a second, as if thinking about something, and then smiled. "By the way, you have facial features that many would envy. Cheekbones, a neat nose, plump lips, and also miniature hands and feet. You always look so harmonious and sophisticated." I interrupted her. "Are you saying that I don't look manly?" She replied, "Not at all. I just think you would make a very attractive woman." "Do you think so?" "Think. I always thought so. You have some feminine mannerisms. When you're happy or throwing a ball, or even when you're angry, even in the way you make love. Gently, like a woman." "And does this attract you?" She assured me. "Yes. Then why are you attracted to my uncle? He's the complete opposite of me. Big, strong, loud, cocky, older than me, and would make a terrible woman. There is not an ounce of sophistication in him. She shrugged. Don't know. It just attracts. Probably for the same reason it turns you on. I have one more request. You don't have to do it. I hope what I said didn't offend you. While I'm on a date with your uncle, will you shave? I ran my hand over my face. I didn't feel any stubble. I might not shave for days, but I did it every day out of habit, not necessity. Not your face, she smiled, although you can shave that too. What then? I asked, anticipating her answer. I was already physically aroused. Oh, legs, arms, groin, chest. Just don't touch the hair on your head. Can we wait until Uncle Will leaves? It's possible, but deep down we both don't want it, right? Damn, she got into my head and gave me the biggest mental blow of my life. It will be awkward for me. He won't notice, Billy. He'll be too busy with me. A few minutes ago you asked why I married you, but I am drawn to him. Here's my answer. Some men are made to be married, and some are made to be slept with. Most people can't be both. So who am I, Angela, if not one or the other? We both know the answer, Billy, but if you need me to say it out loud, please. I'm fertile and going on a date with your uncle. Is it clear enough? My manhood has withered like a flower in the summer sun. She was a witch, and I was under her spell. I'll do it. Is there anything else you want me to do? I'm glad you asked, because there is. Look in my underwear drawer and put on one of my nighties. I prefer short ones so I can see your legs. Find panties that fit. You might as well wear one of my bras. Now that you know how to apply makeup and lipstick, practice on your face. And I almost forgot, I have several wigs in my closet. Choose one. My mouth was dry. I needed a Valium, a beer, maybe even two. No promises. You ask me a lot. If I thought you couldn't handle it, I wouldn't have asked. I felt challenged and hated giving up in the face of difficulties, no matter how humiliating it might seem. I'll do it. Good boy. I'll thank you later. Now you need to get dressed. I'll stay here until I'm ready to leave. I got dressed, went out into the living room, and began to wait for my uncle. Will prided himself on his punctuality. If he was nervous, I didn't notice it. He looked even more impressive in his 2-inch heeled cowboy boots and hat. Brand new jeans, a smart hand embroidered starched cowboy shirt, and a leather belt with a huge buckle featuring a cowboy riding a bull completed his outfit. He smelled Old Spice. We would have shaken hands, but his hands were full. In one he held a bouquet of roses for Angela, in the other a gift box. I remembered him asking her dress size. Looks like the Texan has come to court. I let him in and, like a hospitable host, took the roses and put them in a vase. He said they were beautiful and that Angela would definitely like them. I myself sounded more like one of Angela's friends, or even her mother accepting a suitor. He asked where Angela was. I replied that she was in the bedroom and getting ready. He said he had something for her. I politely blocked his path and said that I would take the gift myself. He looked a little annoyed, but didn't say anything. I went to the bedroom. Angela was sitting on the bed. I told her that the Texan had brought a gift and beautiful roses. I left as quickly as I had entered. Whatever he buys, we will all see it together. I returned to the living room and extended my hand to him. He said that he was glad to see him and that we were looking forward to this visit. I offered him a beer. He refused. I took it for myself. He paced the room. When I asked him to sit down, he replied that he had spent the whole day sitting and did not want his back to hurt. I asked what he had planned for the two of them. He said he had a reservation at a high-end steakhouse in Marfa, followed by dancing and stargazing. He looked at me and said, "We'll be back late, but not too late." Then he winked and grinned, "I'll get her home before dawn, unless she wants breakfast." At that moment, Angela came into the living room, wearing the dress he gave her and the cowboy boots I bought. She looked stunning in a sleeveless red dress with a plunging neckline that showed off her bust. Each breast bounced slightly as it moved. I never, do you hear, Never I haven't seen her without a bra. The hem of the dress reached mid-thigh. There was definitely no dress of that length in her closet. She simply amazed us. She asked if we liked it, and we said yes, but her attention was focused on him, not me. I swear his nostrils flared, and I thought he had some kind of sixth sense for sensing a woman in a hunting mood. Pan, half goat, half man, I thought. I heard you brought me roses. They are wonderful. Thank you, Texan, and thank you, Billy, for finding them a vase. There was an awkward pause. I went up to kiss her goodbye, but she turned her cheek. Not in front of your Uncle Billy. Besides, I just put on my lipstick and don't want to smudge my lipstick. Don't forget to do what I asked. Love you. I love you too. Good night. And they left. Wake up, sleepyhead. Billy opened his eyes, but immediately closed them. The room was too bright. What time is it? He muttered. Almost noon. Seriously? Billy had forgotten that he now looked different from the Billy his wife knew. Oh God, she said a little louder than necessary, worsening his hangover. Hush, he replied, regretting all the bottles of beer and Valium. He vowed that he would never mix them again. Stupid mistake, he thought, knowing that it was not a mistake. He just needed something to get him through the night. There wasn't enough beer. Next time he will smoke and do without pills. Angela did not pay attention to his complaints. Let me look at you. Where's the wig? Don't know. I probably got hot. Angela found him. If she was angry that he threw it across the room, she didn't show it. She climbed onto his bed. Let me put it on for you. He pouted and even turned his head away. Billy, don't be like that. He let her attach the wig to her head. It would sit better if you had less hair. Or you could grow yours, then you won't need a wig. I think it's better to keep it short. I'm not sure my bosses will approve. He winced as he made that slip. She was already talking about next time, and he was already seriously considering it. He sat down. You're so cute, Billy. She pulled off the blanket. She sat down on the bed, touched his leg, and then the nightgown he was wearing. She stroked his face. Great job. She ignored his morning breath and kissed him. Your lips are so plump. He touched her hand. You got your nails done. I'm impressed. He didn't feel particularly sexy. His head hurt and his bladder was full. He got up and headed to the bathroom. She watched him. When he stood up to urinate, she said, Billy, that's not at all feminine. You need to sit down. He ignored her. She got up and left the room. He brushed his teeth and admired his reflection. It's scary, but I could really pass for a woman. He came out of the bathroom and saw Angela standing with a glass of water in her hand. Drink this. I added Alka-Seltzer to it. He drank it in one gulp. She commented, We need to work on your manners. Now come here. She held out her hands to him. He put the glass down and let her hug him. He hugged her back. Both tried to hug harder, as if they were competing to see which of them was stronger. She looked into his eyes and said, Thank you. Did you like it? I really liked it. I'm sure Tex feels the same way. He felt arousal in his panties. He kissed her and asked, How much did you like it? She replied, Why don't you check it yourself? He knelt down next to her. Angela lifted the hem of her dress slightly, and he noticed that something had changed in her appearance. Focusing on her desires, he made every effort to please her. Angela supported him, gently touching his wig-covered head. Your uncle knows how to please, Billy, she whispered. Continue, don't stop. Her reaction became more and more frank, and she spread her legs, giving a subtle sign. He followed her hint, acting confidently and cautiously. After a few moments, Angela tensed and froze, barely able to maintain her balance. It was incredible, she breathed. I need to rest a little. My legs are giving way. She lay down on the bed. He joined her. She and Billy kissed. You taste like Will and me. They exchanged several long French kisses. She ran her hands under his nightie. Come inside me. Give me a couple of minutes, he answered awkwardly, trying to come to his senses. Is everything all ready? I thought so, she said with a slight grin. She playfully ran her hand over his shoulder, hinting at something more, but at the same time not insisting. You're so cute, she added, with a warm smile, as if teasing him. He was confused, not knowing whether she was serious or just joking. She, however, gently touched his hand and looked straight into his eyes. "I like your skin, so smooth," she whispered. She moved a little closer, touching him so lightly that he almost stopped breathing. He wanted to say something, but her good-natured laughter interrupted him. "You should go on dates more often," she winked, moving closer again. She kissed his cheek and pressed closer, allowing the moment to be filled with calm intimacy and warm silence. "You don't hate me, Billy." "No, Angela, I don't hate you." "So, everything is fine with us." "Everything is fine." "I'm so glad. I don't want to lose you." "You won't lose me, but it will be strange." "I think if I didn't know him, it would be easier." "Don't know. I'm glad my first time was with a family member." This simplified everything. "Are you going to see him again?" Billy asked, already knowing the answer before the words left his mouth. "I want to, but only if you don't mind. I don't want to run behind your back." "Thank you. I don't want you running behind my back either." "Billy, I love you." "I love you too, Angela." He needed some space. "I'm hungry." "And you?" "Not good. Will and I had a late breakfast." She sensed a change in his mood when she mentioned his uncle by name. "I'll cook you breakfast. Say what you want. Something low-calorie for your new look or something tasty and high in calories." "Huevos rancheros." She smiled and got out of bed. He sat at the table watching her cook. She was still wearing the dress Will had bought her. He had a lump in his throat and felt a twitching in his groin. "Angela?" "Yes." She looked at him. He thought she had the most beautiful smile. "You look even more beautiful in this dress." She didn't look at him, concentrating on cooking his eggs just the way he liked them. "You are so nice." "Thank you. I love this dress. I never would have thought Tex had such good taste. By the way, I like your nightie. You look good in pink." "Thank you." He looked at the table and remembered the night he used the cucumber on her while she was talking to Will. He wondered when she realized she was a size queen. Did her woman's intuition tell her that Will was well endowed, or was he average? Or was her attraction to the size of his wallet? He knew from experience that rich men could afford things that ordinary guys couldn't afford. How many times had he seen frat boys act like idiots and the girls put up with it? He cleared his throat. "Angela, is it big?" She didn't answer because she was putting his breakfast on his plate. The dress seemed to hug her breasts perfectly. She put a lot of breasts on display. He saw what looked like a mark on the top of her right breast. Will was marking his territory. She placed the plate in front of him. "It looks amazing." "So are you." "Flatterer. Sounds like eloquence runs in your family." "Would you like a cup of coffee?" "Yes, please." She returned with 2 mugs, one for her, the other for him. "I need caffeine. Long night." She took a sip and he began to eat. He was hungry. "To answer your question, yes, Tex is doing well there." Billy swallowed before answering. "Logical. It fits his image. Thick wallet, large size." "Billy, you're jealous." He admitted that he was a little jealous. "But not so much that it doesn't turn you on." He answered with a faint smile. "Judging by what happened earlier, I don't think that's the case." She smiled back at him. "You always liked my body, but today you liked it especially." "I'm glad. I didn't know how you would react when you saw this, knowing that another man was with me." "I didn't know how I would react either. I was pretty sure I wouldn't push you away. Yesterday, I wanted to cry several times. It was emotional for me too, Billy, spreading my legs for another man, inviting him into me." "Was it worth it, Angela? Have we acted stupidly?" "We weren't stupid, and my God, yes, it was worth it." "Billy, you're a selfless lover, but the experience with Tex was," he said to her. "Transformative?" She nodded. "Yes, transformative. I have never experienced what I experienced last night and today. So good." Angela nodded, feeling sorry for Billy because she could imagine how much it would hurt her if their roles were reversed. Billy concentrated on breakfast. Angela looked at him and decided to give him a few minutes before speaking. "I'll go to his hotel later." She didn't ask, but was informed. He was not surprised by her words or tone. Fine. When will we see each other again? Tomorrow evening, after he leaves town. Billy, I want you to be a part of this. Will you help me pack my overnight bag and get ready like yesterday? He said he would help. He was dying inside, but barely 4 inches of him stood like a stake. So embarrassing, he thought. She touched the back of his hand. Thank you. Please. She yawned and said she needed sleep. He watched her breasts as she extended her arms. Go. I'll clean everything up. Thanks for the breakfast. She stood up, ran her fingers through his platinum locks, kissed the top of his wig, and headed into the bedroom. She climbed into bed and covered herself with a blanket, but could not sleep. She thought about last night, about a luxurious dinner and dancing. On the way back, he asked if she wanted to watch the stars. She agreed. He turned off the 2-lane road and found a secluded parking spot. He hugged her and she moved closer, placing her hand on his thigh. She turned to him. His hand slipped from her shoulders. She raised her hand slightly, and his hand immediately slipped under her armpit, ending up on her chest. He kneaded her breasts for several minutes before suggesting that it would be much more pleasant to admire the stars from the back of his pickup truck. She decided to take the next step. Tex? Yes, Angela. She pressed her lips to his, and their kiss immediately became passionate, tongues intertwined. When they broke apart, she said she was ready to go to bed. In the back of a pickup truck or in my hotel, she replied. Why not both? He had a foam mattress and a sleeping bag in the back of the pickup truck. A few minutes later, they were already lying and kissing. He said between kisses that he wanted her for a very long time, for years, ever since he saw her in that black swimsuit. Being with a big man turned out to be a completely different experience. In his movements, one could feel assertiveness and strength, but also amazing care. His touches, although bold, were not without tenderness, and every action seemed to prepare her for something more. She recalled how his attention was focused only on her all evening, how he skillfully guessed her desires. Even through the timidity of the moment, a clear thought slipped through she trusted him. Are you sure? He asked, looking into her eyes. Very confidently, she whispered in a firm voice. I have no protection. She replied, I don't care. And she really didn't care. She wanted him to impregnate her. Angela, there's something you need to know. I really have a big surprise for you. She recalled saying, I'm so excited. He moved closer to her, helping her remove her accessories and relax. There was amazing trust and understanding between them. Their movements were full of tenderness and respect. He was caring and attentive to her feelings, allowing her to get used to each new wave of intimacy. Over time, their communication became more frank and their feelings became brighter. They spent the whole night together, immersed in conversations and enjoying a rare intimacy that is not always found. In the morning, when they woke up, they went to breakfast together. She couldn't help but smile. Never before had she felt so at ease and comfortable with someone. Everything is special with you, she admitted when they were alone again. He laughed. You're not the first to say that, but I'm glad you're feeling good. Yes, you are special, she answered, gently touching his hand and enjoying this short, but such an important moment together. She fell asleep with the thought, and now Billy will help me spend the night in your arms. The phone ringing woke her up a few hours later. She picked up the phone. Hello. It was Tex. He wanted to know when she would arrive. What time is it? 15 minutes past 6. I must be very tired. I hope I'm not too tired, Tex teased. I'm never too tired for you. What are you planning? Dinner. Swimming. Do you still have that black one-piece swimsuit? Sounds great. Yes, I have. And grab my wedding gift. I want you to show it to me. Certainly. Give me half an hour. She shouted, Billy. He entered the bedroom. It was Tex. He wants me to come to him. Pack my bag, please. He wants to go swimming, so put my black one-piece swimsuit in there. And he wants to see me in the nightie he gave me. Billy stood there until Angela reminded him to hurry. He wanted to complain that she'd only been home for a few hours and was already leaving again, but he reminded himself that he didn't mind when she said she'd spend the night with him. Angela was glad Billy was starting to get ready because she didn't want to stir up any drama. She knew Billy was disappointed and felt left out, but she had the whole week ahead of her to make amends. She wondered when Tex would return. She hoped that their separation would not last long. She loved her sweet husband, but was falling deeply in love with his uncle. She felt that he felt the same way about her. Life shouldn't be this complicated, she muttered to herself. However, she felt guilty. She decided to spend time with Billy in a way that would brighten up his evening and give him a small gift. "Come here, Billy." He entered the bathroom, still dressed in his nightie and wig. She handed him a towel. "Wipe me clean." She stood there while Billy dried her off. She was surprised at the changes in his mood. He looked at her with some kind of offended look. She told him exactly where to dry it, even spread her legs. He looked slightly woozy. "Have you taken one of my pills?" "No." "And didn't smoke one of those cigarettes your friend Juan gives you?" "No." "And what?" "I'm not high." "You just seem very enthusiastic. Packing my bag, drying me off." He smiled at her, which just melted her heart. "I'm really into it." Then he picked up his nightie. She thought he looked so cute. His mood might change. She loved him like this, pliable, open to her suggestions. "We don't have much time. Bring my hairdryer and comb." She explained to him how she likes to dry her hair. He followed her into the bedroom, where she sat down and began applying makeup. She didn't need a lot of makeup. "Look at me. While I'm gone, I want you to practice on your face." She finished her makeup and asked him to choose earrings. She loved it when he dressed her and helped her get ready for her meeting with Tex. She was just as excited as he was. She said he needed to practice putting on earrings. "Maybe we should pierce your ears." He was almost sure that she was joking, but not 100%. "My panties, dark blue." He knelt down. She stepped into them, and he pulled them up. "Come on, Billy. I know you want this, and so do I," she whispered. He touched her softly, giving her a gentle touch. "That's enough," she said, staggering a little, feeling weakness creep through her knees. She thought, "It wouldn't take much for me to feel this wave of pleasure, but I want to save it for Tex." She decided to wear a bra. Billy did a pretty good job of clasping it. She wondered how much he trained at night. How many bras did he try before he found the right one? She glanced at her watch. "Billy, then I'll do it myself." He looked dejected. She promised herself that she would make amends later, but right now she didn't want to keep Tex waiting. When she left the bedroom, she looked businesslike and collected. Billy was upset that their time to prepare for their meeting with Tex had been so short, but he was still in a special state. Later, he would learn that this feeling has a name given by psychologists: subspace. He definitely felt like he was having an out-of-body experience. He handed Angela her bag. She blew him a kiss, told him to behave, reminded him to practice, and told him she would see him the next evening. "I know Monday is a work day, but when I return tomorrow evening, you must be at the parade." He nodded silently in agreement. "Walk me to the car. The neighbors will see. I'm in a nightie. Understand? Next time." He hated disappointing her. To hell with it. "Well done," she smiled, pleased that he complied with her request and didn't really curse. There was no one on the street, and it was already getting dark. From a distance, Billy probably looked like a woman in a nightgown, quite an attractive woman, Angela thought. On the way to the hotel, Angela reflected on her marriage. He seemed to be quite good. She was glad that there was still sexual chemistry between her and Billy, although she realized that it was very different from the one that connected her with Tex. With Tex, it was different. It was about submission, about him having sex with her, about his hugs. She felt small next to him. He was rich, powerful, strong, confident, older, attractive, and charismatic, all qualities she found sexy. He never doubted himself. She wondered if she was already pregnant. Her marriage was going through rapid changes, but she liked the direction it was going. Making love with Billy would be different now. She understood that she did not crave sex with him. I wonder if what she's feeling now was temporary. Billy had a better time his second night without Angela, but only because he found something to do with his hands. He took a shower and sat at the dressing table for several hours, practicing applying makeup. He found flaws and started all over again. He was pleased that Angela had several wigs. His build was quite slender, but her clothes still didn't fit. He thought about buying himself a dress, something long and tight. He looked at his buttocks and wondered if it was possible to make them more curvy like a woman's. He read about surgeons across the river and the amazing things they could do. He put on the bra and stuffed the cups with socks, then pulled on one of Angela's nighties. He worked on his manners and voice. Both aspects required enormous attention and concentration. He prepared dinner for himself, trying to do everything the way his wife or mother did it. Nothing came easy. He struggled to think about anything but them. This required even more effort than his adult dressing. He found salvation in television. After several hours in front of the screen, he decided it was time to go to bed. The bed seemed so empty without Angela. He pressed the pillow to her face. He woke up in the middle of the night. Looking at the digital clock on the nightstand, he noted that it was 3 in the morning. 24 hours ago, he had imagined his uncle Will having sex with Angela. He wasn't sure, but he suspected that Will would use the dinner, the dance, and the starry skies over the Big Bend to seduce her. He lay there and wondered why there was so much bitterness and anger in him. He had never felt anything like this before, not even when the old womanizer kept his eyes on Angela walking in a swimsuit, or when Will smirked when he caught her in one of her awkward moments. Then his reaction was completely different. Memories of the old days still hovered in his head, rumors of his uncle's successes in his personal life, his charm and reputation as a man who always got his way. The man had been married 4 times, and Billy couldn't help but think that Angela was just another trophy in a long list. He reminded himself that he shouldn't feel bitter, but should enjoy it. He had been fantasizing about this moment for years. Angeline's hug surprised him. How long had she been infatuated with Will? Did Will feel it, or was it all just a random series of perfectly coincidental events? He knew that Angela was going through a lot of emotions right now. Life-changing sex with a rich, handsome, and charismatic man changes women. Over time, of course, the shine will fade, which is why Will has 4 ex-wives. He decided that over time Will's shine would fade and he would get his Angela back. Back, carrying Will's baby. He said out loud, "I shouldn't resist. I should enjoy this. I want them to have a child." He rubbed harder, imagining Tex and Angela having sex. Ugh, I need to clean up. He didn't get up and spent a little more time in the same purple panties. Then he took them off, cleaned himself up, put on clean ones, and rinsed out the used ones, deciding to wash them by hand in the morning, just as Angela had once done. He dozed off and slept soundly. In the morning, he decided to leave the house. Putting on Angela's robe, he ran outside and picked up the Sunday newspaper. He wondered if anyone had seen him, and if so, had they mistaken him for a woman. He felt mischievous. The day passed slowly. He cleaned, did laundry, ate, and practiced his manners. He developed a deep respect for people who changed their gender. What they were doing was much more complicated than it seemed. He wondered if Angela had a sexual motive in her desire to feminize him, or if it was a way of control. What made her think that he would so easily agree to dress up as a woman? He had never been particularly feminine or showed any interest in women's clothing, so why now? He knew it would all be over in a few hours because he had to go to work the next day. He regretted wearing fake nails because they might not come off as easily as they were put on. He constantly looked at his watch. Their Sunday reunion wasn't as hot as Saturday's. It was almost 7 when he heard Angela's car drive into the carport. He stood up, but instead of opening the door, he looked through the corner of the blinds. She didn't get out of the car right away. Instead, she pulled out a tube of lipstick and applied a fresh coat to her lips. She sat there, rummaging through her purse, looking around. She hesitated. Billy walked away from the window feeling like he'd been punched in the gut. What the hell, he thought. She should run here. It's like she doesn't even want to be here. He decided that if she needed space, he would provide it. He took a bottle of nail polish remover and poured it into a bowl. Sitting down at the kitchen table, he began to soak the nails on one hand. She still didn't come in, although 15 minutes had already passed. He started removing his nails. Finally, she entered the house, but instead of standing up and greeting her, he smiled and said, "You're back." She looked relieved that he didn't attack her with questions. She walked over and kissed him on the cheek. "Do you take off your nails? I can't go to work with them. It was fun while it lasted." "Yes, it's true." "How was your night, Angela?" "Okay, very good," she yawned before continuing. "I'm very tired. I want to tell you everything, but can I do it later? Now I just want to put on my nightie and watch TV." He hid his disappointment and said, "Certainly. We have the whole week ahead of us to talk. I'm tired too." He pretended to yawn, although in fact he was not tired at all. She left the room. He continued removing his nails. He noticed that she had closed the door. He barely heard her voice. She was talking on the phone. He didn't understand why she didn't want him to hear. He even knocked on the door to warn her that he was about to enter. She asked to give her a minute. He clearly heard her talking. She was chatting with his uncle. She spoke very quietly and giggled a lot. She sounded very happy. He heard her say she loved him before hanging up. "Now you can come in." He felt like a stranger in his own home. He went to the bathroom, avoiding eye contact with Angela, and took a shower. He came out, dried himself with a towel, looking at his body without hair, his face without makeup. He left the bathroom and put on his pajamas. He joined her in the living room and asked if she wanted something to drink. A glass of iced tea. He made himself a cup of coffee. He served her tea. "Thank you. Where's your nightie? The weekend is over. Sit with me." They settled down on the sofa and started watching TV. It wasn't until the next evening that Angela, whom he knew, met him at the door. She was happy. Her kiss was passionate, and he responded with equal passion. She told him to wash his face because dinner would be ready in a few minutes. She even poured him beer into a chilled mug. Steak, potatoes, salad, everything was delicious. She asked about his day. He told me, trying to make it more interesting than it was. He asked her about work. She said she took the day off. He didn't ask why, figuring she was tired from spending the weekend with his uncle. He knew that she didn't clean the house because he had already done everything himself. He assumed she had slept all day. He didn't care because what mattered most was that his wife was back. They finished dinner and washed the dishes together. He washed and she dried. Finally, she said, "I know you want to hear everything about my weekend. I want to, but only if you want it yourself." His answer reassured her. When the dishes were dried and put away, she told him to pour a glass of wine while she changed. She returned a few minutes later, wearing the nightgown Tex had bought her. "Well, how do I look?" "Amazing." She tossed him the panties that came with it. "Put them on, Billy." He undressed and put on his panties. "Someone is happy." He looked down and said, "Yes, he is satisfied." They headed into the living room with glasses in their hands. She looked around and chose where she wanted to sit. She chose an antique rocking chair. Putting her feet up on the armrests, she told him to come over and enjoy his dessert. Afterwards, she thanked him, saying, "I really needed this." She invited him to sit on the sofa, explaining that it would be more comfortable for her. He agreed, and a moment of intimacy arose between them, full of tenderness and trust. When it was all over, she smiled and remarked, "Your well-groomed appearance suits you so well. I hope you continue to take care of yourself for my sake." He promised that he would, especially if it could bring them even closer. She smiled slyly and replied, "Let's see." They sat on the couch, drank wine, and enjoyed the moment. He felt excited, but decided not to push his luck. He wondered if she would always need space after being with Will or some other man. He decided that her experience had been much more emotional than they had both expected. On Tuesday evening, Billy returned home before Angela and cooked her favorite dish. He tried his best to please her, even giving her a foot massage while she enjoyed a glass of wine. Billy, you spoil me so much. What did I do to deserve such royal treatment? It would be even better if you were all in the parade. Is it true? Why does this excite you? She shrugged. Don't know. It just happens that way. I try not to analyze. Just like what turns me on is when your uncle has sex with me. This shouldn't happen, but it does. He asked if he needed to go change and clean up. I'm enjoying the foot massage too much, but I wouldn't mind going back to Billy Ann's house tomorrow. Billy Ann, I think we should call you something else when you're dressed like a woman. Billy liked this idea. When I was a child, I knew one Billy Ann. Angela observed. From where you are sitting, you can see my panties, can't you? Billy replied. Guilty. She laughed. It's not a crime to look at my panties. Take them off me. He pulled off her panties. It's good when it becomes easier to breathe, she said with a smile. Rub my fingers. Your uncle seems to like me as much as you do. I bet you sometimes imagine how he thinks about me. I guess you don't need both hands to massage your feet, she added playfully, glancing at him. They both looked at each other slightly embarrassed, but still allowed themselves to relax a little. Angela made herself comfortable on the sofa, and Billy remained on the floor, continuing to gently massage her foot. Are you all right? He suddenly asked, noticing a slight redness on her skin. I feel a little tired, but it's a pleasant pain, she answered. I guess I look tired. Not really, just a little more blush, Billy responded. You know, it reminded me how important rest is, Angela said, watching his movements with a smile. Perhaps, after days like these, you really need to relax more often. Billy nodded, continuing his work, and she, laying her head on the back of the sofa, closed her eyes. It's like you're somewhere far away, he joked. I just think how sometimes simple things care, attention can be so valuable, she answered softly. After a moment of silence and peace, Billy wiped his hands and smiled. It was unexpectedly intense for me. And for me too, Angela answered with a warm smile. Thank you. On Wednesday, he not only dressed up before she came home, but also prepared dinner. You're so cute, Billy Ann, she commented from the kitchen table, watching her husband in a wig, makeup, panties, and apron prepare dinner. You're just being nice, Angela said. I sincerely, come here, baby. She ran her hand down his thigh, through the fabric of his clothing, causing him to hold his breath. If I weren't so hungry, I would have stayed here longer, she said with a smile. He laughed, although he secretly hoped that dinner could wait. His thoughts had been returning to this moment all day, and he had difficulty hiding his excitement. But she took the fork. She told him about her day, commented on his appearance, and gave him some tips on how to look more feminine. Much better, Billy Ann. What about my voice? Billy asked. Baby steps, Billy Ann. Let's work on our manners. You don't have a deep voice, just raise your tone a little, or leave it as is. Many men like women with a deep, sexy voice. He realized that being a transvestite requires a lot of effort. After he cleared the table, she said, I have a surprise for you. I'll call you when I'm ready. She went into the bedroom. 10 minutes later, he heard her talking on the phone. She spoke to Will. Another 10 minutes passed before she called. Billy Ann, come here. He entered the bedroom. She lay on the bed, smiling slightly and raising a finger to her lips, letting him know that he needed to be quiet. He moved closer to her, beginning to gently kiss her legs and thighs while she was on the phone with Will. After some time, he leaned lower, giving her caresses that caused her obvious pleasure. She continued to talk, jokingly sharing her thoughts and feelings, accompanying her words with a light laugh. At the other end of the line, Will was silent, listening carefully to her voice. The atmosphere was full of tension, intimacy, and hidden desires. At that moment, each of them felt something special, and this communication left a mark on their memory. Will arrived in town on Friday. Billy dressed up as Billy Ann and helped Angela get ready for her date. Unlike their first date, Will didn't pick her up at home this time. Angela drove herself to Will's hotel, where she spent both nights. They hit the dance floor again, had sex under the stars, and continued in Will's hotel room. Billy remained Billy Ann all weekend. This time he did better, and his feminine manners improved significantly. The weekend dragged on for a long time, but he did his best to spend it properly. Angela returned home Sunday night, clearly very happy to see him again. She pushed Billy Ann on his back and sat down next to him. Billy Ann was visibly excited, and it didn't go unnoticed. When it was all over, Angela smiled and ran her hand through her hair with satisfaction. "It was wonderful," she said with a warm smile. "You seemed delighted. There's nothing to be shy about. We both know how much you liked it." She looked at him slyly, indicating a slight awkwardness in his appearance. "Look at the shape of your clothes," she teased. "What are we having for dinner? I'm hungry. And after the meal, perhaps I will have more tasks for you." At dinner, she praised his feminine manners while she ate with gusto the steak he had prepared for her. "I think you're ready to go out. Let's just go for a ride in the car. Maybe we can go to the store for a while." "I don't know. I don't think I'll deceive anyone. Trust me, if I didn't think you were ready, I would have told you." A few nights later, they finally went out. Billy was wearing the women's jeans and blouse Angela had bought him. He quickly realized that other drivers were mistaking them for two women in a car. Angela waited in the car outside the store while he quickly ran inside to make his purchases. If the clerk noticed anything, he didn't show it. In fact, Billy Ann even thought the clerk's eyes were watching him, checking out his ass. It wasn't that hard, was it? He admitted that it had been easier than he had expected, but he had been very tense the whole time. The third weekend after Angela and Will had become lovers, Billy dressed up as a woman again and took Angela to Will's hotel. He wanted Alpine to be bigger and give him the opportunity to remain anonymous, because he was feeling more and more confident in his female persona. Angela said she thought he was ready too, but warned him that Alpine was too small a town. She promised that the next time they went to a big city like Austin, he could go out as a woman. Angela returned home Sunday night in high spirits after her evening with Billy Ann. He was there, not hiding his attentions to her. They kissed, their closeness especially intense. Angela noticed his enthusiasm and asked, "Aren't you tired?" "I almost couldn't resist a few times, but I managed," he replied with a little pride. Angela smiled to herself. She hadn't expected anything special from their meeting, especially after her stressful day with Tex. Intimacy with Billy Ann felt different, more relaxed, less demanding. She had already enjoyed his attentions enough and decided that was enough for today. She approached him carefully, playing with their mutual attraction with ease and confidence. Her movements were deliberate, and she knew how to influence his mood without saying anything. He was on the edge, and all she had to do was bring him to a state of complete relaxation, as she planned. "Billy Ann, do you understand that I act this way for a reason? You know that your uncle and I are now expecting a child," she said quietly, her voice sounding both soft and confident. His reaction was predictable, as always. She smiled, pleased with how easily she could manipulate him until he completely obeyed her plan. Later, lying in bed, she again refused his clumsy attempts to move on to more intimate matters. Instead, she spoke first, gently touching his arm and gently turning his attention to her story. "Want to hear how I spent my weekend?" she asked with a slight grin. Billy Ann nodded, of course, holding her breath. Her story, full of subtle hints and playful details, completely captivated him. She laughed to herself, noticing how quickly he lost control of his emotions. "Billy, you still have a lot to work on," she joked, loving to laugh at his lack of self-control. He made excuses. "I can't help myself. I haven't had such problems before." She replied, "It's all right, Billy Ann. You can't help yourself. Instead of trying to fix what isn't broken, I want you to just let yourself enjoy it. Will you do it for me?" "I can. But are you sure? I feel like I'm letting you down." "You don't let me down, Billy Ann. Everything I need in a man, I get from your uncle. Let's save sex for special occasions like an anniversary or birthday. The rest of the time, I will please you in other ways." "But we are husband and wife, Angela." "That's true, But we don't have to have sex to express physical intimacy. When you give pleasure to me or I give pleasure to you, that is intimacy. Billy remarked, but with Will, you have sex as an expression of intimacy. Angela answered, that's true, but considering how big your uncle is, you have to express your affection for him differently. Everything with him and me is different than with you and me, and I even like that each of these cases is special in its own way. Are you in love with Will? Billy asked, not liking the direction of their conversation, but feeling excited by it. Angela caught his eye. Would that be bad? I can't help it, Billy, but I think I'm in love. Billy assured her that she wasn't bad, but he was surprised how quickly she fell in love with his uncle. It doesn't surprise me, Billy. Unlike our relationship, where we did everything slowly, with Will everything happened quickly. On our first date, I got pregnant. She sensed that Billy was a little upset by her words, so she reminded him that she still loved him despite carrying his uncle's child. She offered to caress him again if he wanted to hear the details of her weekend. Billy agreed to her proposal because their conversation, although humiliating, aroused him to the core. She laid him on his back and with a smile invited him to continue the game. Taking control of the situation, she confidently did exactly what he always liked the most. Now, Billy Ann, try to hold on until the end of my story. But if it doesn't work out, it's okay, she said softly, adding a little perkiness to her tone. She even allowed herself a couple of playful gestures and unobtrusively reminded him that a well-groomed appearance suits him very well. She really liked it when he tried it on. The words she spoke touched something special in him, and it only intensified his emotions. He thought about how happy she was with him and mentally compared himself to other men he had ever admired. A few weeks later, Angela asked Billy to buy a pregnancy test. She insisted that he dress up for this special occasion. Together they watched as the test revealed that Angela was indeed pregnant. She told him she wanted to share the news with Will, but in private. Billy Ann, when I talk to Will, you can come in because I'm sure I'll want you to please me. Her offer made the situation a little easier. He never tired of being between her legs. Her relationship with Will made him want to please her even more. He never thought that his desires would change so much, but it did. Everything was fine until the 6th month of Angela's pregnancy. Will gave Angela a gorgeous diamond ring. She liked it so much that she stopped wearing the engagement ring Billy gave her. A few weeks later, she took off her wedding ring while going on a weekend getaway with Will. She explained that Will liked to show her off as his woman. She put the ring back on when she returned home, but suggested that Billy change the size of the engagement ring and wear it when he dressed up as Billy Ann. Billy was very excited about the prospect of fatherhood and believed that it was only a matter of time before Will left, and he stopped dressing up as Billy Ann. His wife would return to him, and they would build their family. He suggested that Angela start looking for larger housing. She answered rather evasively. Then he suggested how they could arrange their small house for 3. She replied, "That's nice, Billy." And then she stunned him with the news that she and Will were going on a trip to El Paso. She came back with new things and a new car. A week later, he returned to an empty house with a note from Angela. He opened the note, hoping to read a long explanation of why she left. Instead, there was one word, forgive. He thought about finding her, begging her to stay, or even killing his uncle. But I decided that all these ideas were terrible. He couldn't make her love him, and killing his uncle would only bring momentary satisfaction. Prison would be forever. He did not contest the divorce. He went through many difficult days, but his friends and family helped him get through them. After months of reflection, he came to the conclusion that it was not Will's size that ruined his marriage, but his fat wallet. Angela gave in to greed. Working as a professor at a small university in a remote town, Billy was quite happy with his modest salary. He focused on writing books, which allowed him to obtain the position of head of the department. Respected by students and colleagues, he realized his dream. 10 years later, his parents talked him into going to a family gathering, an annual event he had avoided for the past decade. They pressed on the feeling of guilt, reminding us of older relatives who might soon pass away. He didn't want to meet with Will or his ex-wife, but decided it was like ripping off a Band-Aid, getting it over quickly and with pain. He socialized with his family and avoided them with their children. 3 children, and she's pregnant again with her 4th. It's Will's style to keep them barefoot and pregnant, fill them with trinkets, but the shine fades over time. Angela found him later. He kept sneaking glances at her all day. She still looked great. Her children needed control. They did not understand boundaries. When the competition began, she asked him to become her partner. He wanted to refuse, but she said it as only she could. Please. He focused on the egg, not her. It broke in her hands. He held back his laughter, not wanting to appear bitter. It's my fault. I shot too hard. The throw was normal. I was too careless. You've always had a softer approach. Thank you, he replied, wondering if this was an insult and a reference to Billy Ann. She said, I need to go to the ladies' room to wash my hands. She looked at him as if inviting him to come with her. Against his better judgment, he replied, Let's go. I need to relieve myself too. She laughed. What's so funny? He asked. I haven't heard such an expression in a long time. It's better than saying I need to pee. Is it true? But that's not why I laughed. Lily described yours perfectly sweet, fragile. Tell me, do you still shave? You don't have to answer. Just curious. He replied, I'm not ashamed. Yes. They reached the toilet and went their separate ways. He endured for a long time. From her point of view, he's probably really like a flower, unlike Will's club. He washed his hands and went outside. Angela was already waiting for him. I washed off all the eggs. When I was married to you, these sticky situations were much more fun. He was stunned that she had brought up her obsession again. It's been a long time, Angela. She replied, I miss it. I'm sure Will be happy to help you. She ignored his quip. Tex and I have never been as close as we are with you. Then why did you leave? I've been asking myself this question for a long time, Billy. We better go back. Angela, I just want to say you look beautiful. What term are you in? 3 months. He remembered the moment when she left him. She was 6 months pregnant when she left while he was at work. You didn't leave a normal note then. I kept wondering what I had done wrong. You didn't do anything wrong. Your uncle is just very charming. And it's big. She added with a smile, and an even bigger wallet. He showered me with gifts. After the wedding, he bought me a big house. I had everything I wanted. It looks like you're living in a fairy tale, or like a prisoner in a golden cage. They returned to the pavilion. The children ran up to her. She formally introduced them to Billy. They were very polite in the presence of their mother and quickly ran off to play with their many cousins. Good kids, he commented, feeling a burning envy. You married? Are there any children? No and no. For a long time, I swore off relationships with women, immersed in my career, wrote a lot of books. I'm sorry I left such a bitter taste in your mouth. Forget it, Angela. What happened, happened. I dated someone, but never met the one I wanted to be with forever. I'm happy with my life. I have to go. It was great seeing you, Billy. I'm serious. It was nice to see you too, Angela. She insisted on hugging him and kissed him on the cheek. He hugged her too, but his hug was not the same as hers. He enjoyed the feeling of her pregnant belly. He resisted the urge to kiss her and squeeze her in his arms. He left the meeting without saying goodbye to anyone else. When he returned to his parents' house, the rest of the family returned a few hours later. Everyone saw how he interacted with Angela and bombarded him with questions. He told them they were exaggerating. He believed she was simply looking for closure. His mother said, Nonsense. I know when a woman wants something. She was probably tired of Will's escapades. I realized that I was a fool. Mom, let's talk about something else. The next day, he returned to Alpine. He thought a lot about Angela. That evening, he satisfied himself by imagining himself making love to her. 2 weeks later, on a Friday night, he heard the sound of a car door closing. He looked out the window and couldn't believe his eyes. Angela was walking down his driveway. He opened the door and came out to meet her. "Billy, I can't believe you still live here." "Why not? It's just me here. Plus, it's close to work." She walked past him into the house, looked around, still drinking Lone Star. He smiled and nodded, offering her the bottle. With pleasure. They were standing in the kitchen. "So many memories," she said, taking a long sip of her beer. "Delicious, damn it." She looked around again. "Still like Texas steak?" He replied, "Of course. I want to cook us dinner." "Don't, Angela." "I want to. Please." He rolled his eyes. "I'll help." Together they breaded the meat, cut the potatoes, and fried them. Then they made the gravy. She set the table. He wasn't religious and didn't remember her being one, but she insisted they hold hands and asked God to bless their dinner. He looked at her in surprise. She explained, "When you have children, you become more spiritual. I don't understand this. Forgive." They started eating. He said everything was very tasty. She smiled and thanked him. Halfway through dinner, he asked, "Angela, why are you here?" "Isn't it obvious? Because you are here. You're a married woman, Angela." "I left Tex. He will look for you." "What about the children?" "It won't. I told him where I was going. My sister has children." "And what did he say?" "Nothing special. He already has an eye on number 6. He muttered something about a family matter." In the spirit of Will. When they finished dinner, he suggested cleaning up and insisted that she rest on the couch. He noted that it was new, but that the old rocking chair was still there. She said, "This rocking chair brings back so many good memories, just like this table." She said something about needing to freshen up. Cleaning up took him some time. When he entered the living room, it was empty. "Angela, I'm here." He went into the bedroom. The room was dark. She was lying on the bed. "Billy, make love to me." He began to explain why it was a terrible idea and why he should say no. "Please," she begged. "Angela, I want to, but..." "You don't want me." "Angela, I never stopped wanting you." "Prove it. Make love to me, Billy." He undressed and lay down on the bed next to her. They were lying on their sides. He stroked her face and ran his hand through her hair. "Turn on the lamp," he said. "I want to see you." She started to protest. "Turn on the lamp," he repeated. She obeyed. "You are beautiful. You are kind. I feel like a cow. 3 children. I have stretch marks. My breasts are like udders." He silenced her with a kiss. "You're still a great kisser, Billy," she said after the kiss. They kissed again. His hands gently slid over her body, lingering on her rounded belly, as if trying to feel the new life inside. He showered kisses on her neck and shoulders, slowly moving lower. She looked at him with a trusting smile and pulled him closer to her, allowing them to dissolve in this moment. Their intimacy was filled with tenderness and long-forgotten passion, which made their breath hitch and their hearts beat in unison. Later, they lay next to each other, tired and happy, sharing quiet words and glances full of love. After this, she said, "It was so good. Thank you." He lay down next to her. She gently touched his hand, and he felt a warm wave of closeness. "I can't," he began hesitantly. "Doesn't matter. I just want you to feel good." Her voice sounded soft and confident. "For a long time, everything was different, but now I only need you." They were closer than ever, and it brought them both a deep, almost forgotten feeling of togetherness. He was amazed at how strongly the feeling he experienced filled him from the inside, as if the world had stopped. "Thank you," she whispered quietly, breaking their moment of silence. They lay next to each other, and he couldn't help but feel a slight feeling of awkwardness, as if he hadn't given her what she deserved. Her gaze was warm and calm, but something about it seemed impenetrable. She mentioned that she was going to the bathroom, and he wondered for a moment whether she was trying to hide her anxiety or something else. Without thinking, he hugged her and gently pressed her shoulder. "It's not worth it," she whispered, but there was no reproach in her voice. "I want to," he answered softly. His touch and care seemed to work a miracle again. She closed her eyes and smiled. He heard her say something about how she hoped for this moment again and how much she needed it. She relaxed and suddenly said that she didn't remember the last time she was so happy. Later, she said, "We always had so much fun in bed." "You and Will had a lot of fun," he noted. She ignored the bitterness in his voice, but agreed that he was right. "But it was a lot more fun with you, me, and Tex." "Don't forget about Billy Ann," he reminded me. She laughed. "I never forgot. It was such hot sex. What made you want me to dress like a woman?" "Don't know. I think I was hoping that I could have it all and not feel guilty. Part of it was to control you, but the real reason was that I found it incredibly arousing when you made love to me while dressed as a woman. You're a beautiful woman, Billy." "I don't blame you, Angela, but have you ever thought that you like women?" "I thought about it, but no. I don't feel sexually attracted to women, only to you when you're dressed like one. Are you still dressing up?" "No, not since you left." "Where do we go from here, Angela? Where do you want to go?" "I would like to pick up where we left off, Angela, but 10 years have passed. Everything has changed. You have 3 children and a 4th on the way, so you don't want to try." "I didn't say that. I want to try, but I like it here. I like my job and this city. Billy, we can take our time. I spoke with a realtor today. There is a house for sale big enough for all of us. You can meet the children. We will get to know each other again. We'll try. It seems like you've already jumped into the deep end since you found a house." She ran her finger over his chest. "I'm glad you continue to shave. I'm sure you'll decide. My children need a father, and I need a man whose appetite will be only for me." Angela spent the weekend with Billy. They made love several times. She even used a sex toy on herself. There were many gorillas in the room, which they ignored. "Angela, I will never satisfy you like Will. What happens if you get itchy again? We'll deal with this when the time comes. We are older and wiser. I won't do anything without your approval." "What about Billy Ann? I don't think bringing her back is a good idea, especially with kids." She put a finger to his lips. "I think we will find ways to hide this from the children, but it will be your decision." "What should we do with Will?" She answered, but since they brought up topics that were best left alone, she wanted to gauge his reaction, to see how deep inside he lay the desire to be a cuckold. After all, he was the one who was hinting that the weak one in their relationship was her, the one who was addicted to being big. Judging by his past with the other kids, I don't expect we'll be seeing much of him. She looked at him with her angelic eyes and asked, "Tell me, Billy, if I get itchy again, would you want Tex to scratch that itchy spot?" While they were having a serious conversation, she absent-mindedly played with him, noticing that he was a little embarrassed. He touched her shoulder affectionately, as if trying to maintain a balance between words and actions. Her question elicited from him the reaction she had anticipated, and his embarrassment became noticeable. She, however, did not attach any importance to this. With a smile, she brought her hand closer to his face. "Angela, I'm sorry," he muttered quietly. "SHH," she replied, in a voice that conveyed soft confidence. "Just trust me." He obediently obeyed, and the awkwardness between them dissolved. She stood up and, turning the conversation in a different direction, added, "There is something convenient for the night in the suitcase. Put this on and come see me." He told her, "I still have the one Will gave us." She smiled and asked what he was waiting for. "Did you keep any of my wigs?" "Yes. Put one on. We'll dress you up another time, but right now I'm hornier than a goat." A few minutes later, dressed as Billy Ann, he was skillfully caressing his ex-wife. She left on Sunday evening, but not before promising to return soon. "I'm so glad we connected again, Angela." "Me too, Billy. I'm glad we discussed a lot. This will make our lives easier in the future." Billy and Angela were in no hurry. She moved with her children to Alpine. She had her fourth child and was considering getting her tubes tied. Billy suggested a vasectomy. She winked at him and asked, "What if my size cravings come back? Do you mind if I get hit again? I always thought that 4 children were enough, 2 boys and 2 girls, but now I like the idea of 5, the number of fingers on my hand." She had an uncanny ability to make Billy blush, and her questions left him flushed and speechless. She answered for him herself. "It's simple. You need to make an appointment with a doctor. Chick, chick." The next few years were very busy. With 4 children to raise, there was little time left for Billy to be Billy Ann and Angela to be satisfied with her size. As Angela had predicted, Tex remained on the sidelines, and Billy was fine with that. He enjoyed fatherhood. He had his own house, she had hers, but he spent most of his time with her. One day, one of the children asked him why he went home every night instead of staying. He explained that he and Angela were not married. The answer was, "Then get married." A few months later, he proposed. Angela readily agreed. They got married in the courthouse with just the 6 of them present. Tex was not a model father, but he was generous to his ex-wives and their children, and Angela and her children were no exception. On one of those rare evenings when the stars aligned, Billy and Angela danced at Mary's, enjoying a moment of freedom and intimacy. They later stayed in the same hotel and room where Angela once spent a weekend with Tex 15 years ago. Lying next to her in the silence of the room, Angela thoughtfully touched Billy's hand and said, "I'm already over 30, Billy. If we want another child, we need to hurry." Billy froze for a moment, remembering that he had long ago deprived himself of the opportunity to have children. But he understood, this is not about him. "I wouldn't mind a 5th, Angela," he replied softly. "Do you have someone in mind?" She smiled and lay down next to him, their eyes meeting in the dimness of the room. She replied, "Yes, Tex is in town. He's in this hotel." "How do you know?" "He called me and said he was on business in the area and wouldn't mind seeing me again." "What did you tell him?" "I said I needed to talk to Billy, but that I wouldn't mind meeting up for old times' sake." She could see that Billy was torn between the fear of losing her and their family and the excitement of Tex making her a baby. "Billy, this is perfect timing. I'm fertile. Tex in this hotel. It's a sign, Billy. We don't have to go back another night." She continued to touch him carefully, giving him a moment to collect his thoughts. Usually he warned her that he would finish soon, but this time everything happened unexpectedly. When he finished, she carefully approached and kissed him, softly conveying to him what was there. "Very nice," she said, smiling. He said yes, but looked unsure. She reassured him. "It won't be like last time, Billy. Trust me. You can call him in the morning." Do I have to?" She smiled and said, "It won't be so interesting if it's not you. I want you to be involved." That morning, Billy made that awkward call while Angela stood by and watched. "Long time no hear, Tex. Angela said you're in town. I thought maybe you'd like to see her." "Yes, we are in the same hotel. Is it true? She would have loved it. Should she come now? And Tex, she's fertile. You are right. It's better to keep it in the family." When he hung up, Angela was already getting dressed. She asked, "Does he want me right now?" Billy nodded yes and added, "He said he'd wear me out." Angela smiled. "I like it, and the baby too." She kissed him goodbye and hurried to Will's room, where the 2 of them had sex for most of the morning and all afternoon. She called him and asked him to bring her clothes and toiletries to Will's room. He thought his nightmare was repeating itself. Tex opened the door and greeted him like his best friend. Angela was completely naked. She greeted him with a hug, took her bag, and went to the bathroom. Billy thought she looked so relaxed, naked in front of them, but then he stopped himself. Why should she be surprised if she and Tex had been married for 10 years? "The 3 of us are going out to dinner," Tex said. Billy replied, "Great." Mentally, he asked himself what the 3 of them would talk about. Although he had been horny all day, he still felt bitter towards Tex and Angela. This erotic experience awakened in him demons that he had thought had long been exorcised. Will said, "You don't sound too excited." Billy just shrugged. "Come on, Billy. I can't change the past." He got too close to Billy. The demons surfaced and Billy drove his knee hard into Will's groin. Will jumped back, then doubled over in pain. Billy thought about hitting him even more. "For what?" asked Will. "I told you I'm sorry." "You know why? And no, you didn't apologize. Apology accepted." Angela was blow-drying her hair and didn't hear anything, but when she returned to the room, she felt tension. "Boys, are you fighting?" Will replied, "No, we were just chatting." He looked at Billy. "Are we even now?" Billy said, "Yes, that's okay." An instant, or rather, one sharp blow of the knee and an apology from his uncle, and the anger that he had carried for so long disappeared. He even asked Will if he was okay. Will replied that he was, but he would be sick, which led Angela to ask Billy what he had done. He told her. She looked concerned. "Couldn't you have punched him in the jaw? I don't want you to hurt his baby makers." Billy smiled and said that everything happened so quickly that he did not have time to think about the possible consequences. While dressing and talking, she told them both, "I will never understand men. Weren't you mistaken when we were just discussing Will being an influence on me? And didn't you promise to apologize?" Will said, "I apologized." After Billy acted rudely, she noted. Will continued, "Did he act like that around you?" "It was kind of strange, and yet everything was awkward." Billy blushed. Will said, "He hit it big." Angela smiled and said, "And that's not the half of it. But yeah, that's right. After dinner, I was hoping the three of us would have some fun." She turned to Billy. "Or should I tell your uncle that it's just you and me going to dinner? I already have enough of his baby makers inside me." Billy assured her that he wanted all three of them to go to dinner. She turned to Will and asked him to zip up her dress. Then she sat on the bed and asked Billy to fasten the straps on her sandals. Dinner went well, but the pleasure afterwards was even better. The next day they had breakfast together and then went about their business. Billy asked if Will wanted to see his kids, and he said no. "These are your children, Billy. I was only a donor. Angela actually raised them herself. I've never been particularly paternal." "Sorry, Will. I always thought you were a great uncle." "Thank you. Well, if you're in town, call us." Angela hugged Will and thanked him. "For what?" he asked. "For your kindness and for giving me my fifth child." She looked at Billy as she and Tex hugged and kissed. Turning around, she said, "Billy, tell your uncle thank you for having sex with your wife so well and hopefully making her a baby." Billy smiled and said, "Thank you, Uncle Will." She said, "Say it completely." "For having such good sex with Angela and hopefully knocking her up. And last night was amazing." Will said, "It was fun, and if she's not pregnant, I'll have another reason to visit Alpine." 2 weeks later, Angela missed her period. Subscribe to our channel so that your love doesn't cheat on you, and go ahead and listen to the next story, because this story is nothing compared to the next one. If you're under 18, don't even think click to the next one.